Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast, and good evening to those who are a little bit further away. Welcome to Insights Now webinar. We're really excited to have you here today to discuss this really important topic. Thanks for your patience here for the last few minutes as we are getting ourselves organized and having everyone continue to log in. Sometimes the platform just takes a moment for all of us to get logged in and to join together. And today we're going to address context in consumer research and the really important facets of context and how to elevate your insights by building really the right context into our research designs. There's so many different options that we have, and we really want to focus on how we can take those context opportunities and deliver great research insights. All right, today's presenters include myself and Dave Lundell, Chief Executive Officer of Insights Now. Dave, could you say a few words as a way of introduction?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My passion is really about innovation and providing insights. I would really like to, the subject today is because it's a key component of what behavioral research is all about, and that is the area of context. So really excited about this presentation, and I hope you all can take away and glean some things that are of value to you, take back into what you're doing.
Great. And I'm Sarah Kirkmeyer, Senior Director for Client Partnerships at Insights Now. My passion for centering consumer research comes really from the opportunity for us to learn every day. We have the unique privilege to apply this with consumers in this ever-changing world. What we know today might be disrupted tomorrow or yesterday or last week or last year. And how we take that, apply that, and leverage behavior research to help us develop great insights makes me come to work every day, and hopefully can share some of it in our webinar today. As we get started, please notice the navigation panel of the system. We look forward to your questions. Enter them at any time, and we'll work to answer them during the session or during the Q&A at the end. Also, if there are any technical issues, please let us know. We'll help you address them straight away. Now, I'll turn it over to Dave to get us grounded in behavioral research, contexts, and prompts.
Yeah, thank you. A question we frequently get asked is, what is behavioral research? And the answer to that is it's really applied neuroscience, in particular neuroscience for consumer research. And neuroscience has a lot of different subdisciplines, behavioral neuroscience, cognitive neuroscience, which is how the brain works. Affect neuroscience is how our experiences make us feel, and social neurosciences, in terms of how the context of our social environments really impact how we think and how we behave. So behavioral research is central to what we do as consumer researchers. Now, you could also think about neuroscience in terms of the methods. And there's a lot of neuroscience done with very simple self-reports. Because as I was talking about, there's a lot of ways in which online research really is that has various different self-reports. You can glean a lot by how you structure and design your research, and that's what we're going to get into a lot today. But there's also a lot of techniques that are behavioral measures that are the outcomes, and we're going to present some of those today. And these are much more easier to use than physiological measures, neuroimaging sort of techniques that require equipment. And so it's not as easy to apply, have some additional costs, so on. But anyways, you could think about it. But beyond that, what behavioral research is all about is really understanding how to apply it from a research design perspective. And what I mean by that is these 4 C's of behavioral research, okay? Behavioral research is distinct by focusing on understanding these 4 C's. That is, focusing on behavioral change, onto why behavioral change occurs, how to impact behavioral change, how to incorporate behavioral change into your strategies. It's about cues, understanding cues, product qualities, or things that are in the environment that trigger behavior or our impressions about things. It's about co-participation, treating people not as respondents that are involved with our research, but as co-participants so that we can really get into questions of why. And last, which is really important for today, context, in terms of understanding how to incorporate context into your research design and your protocols so you can improve your research, get better insights. Now, context today, of course, is really what we want to focus on. So I want to delve into a couple things. So one of the most powerful examples of context is some research that we did back in 2009 for Bush Brothers. And prior to this research, Bush Brothers, their innovation initiatives and their advertisement and everything, their company was very product centric. That means they were diversifying their lines and position their products based on their main core, how the sensorial qualities of their baked beans product lines went with fish and chicken and steak as a side. Now, what I'm going to show you is a couple ads to sort of portray this from a context perspective. The first one really portrays their product-centric approach to product positioning innovation. So Sarah's going to run this first video for you.
All right, give me just a moment. Let's see and play.
What you got there, Duke?
Jay and Duke talking action figures. My idea.
Love it. Let's see what I say.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Bush's country-style baked beans are slow-cooked according to our secret family recipe with specially cured bacon and extra brown sugar for a thicker sauce and richer taste.
The secret family recipe starts with beans and bacon.
Batteries not included.
Aw, you're no fun.
Enjoy Bush's baked beans, still made from our secret family recipe.
What is you can see they're very product-centric focus on the secret family recipe and so on. You know, thicker sauce and sensorial qualities. Now, the research that we did was to look at the idea of upscaled baked beans products, and we ended up doing some qualitative ethnography into college football tailgating parties. And what we discovered from this research that the true motives for baked bean use had little to do with the qualities of the products themselves. It had everything to do with context, and in context specifically for what became known as game day moments. And these motives drove purchase behavior in these motives, in these moments. It was not about fitting with steak or chicken or fish or whatever main courses are being served at these at tailgaters, but is about being prepared and delighting your guests. So I'm going to show you a second ad here, or Sarah's going to run it, to show you how the outcome was, because the research that we did was really different and impacted the company tremendously.
Game day. It's all about being prepared. So when you set out your game day spread, be ready. With Bush's baked beans as part of your lineup, the perfect complement to juicy burgers and sizzling brats. Next game day, serve the guaranteed crowd pleaser, Bush's baked beans.
Are you ready?
Sites led to the #1 all-time innovation in the history of this company, the Grill and Beans line. And you can see from this ad that the new line was focused on the context of game day moments rather than the product qualities. So moments do matter. They matter because of context, okay? They matter because of context. Context of product experience shape how we experience products and how we imagine we might experience products in the future. Now, the way that that context shapes our product experiences is through the cognitive mechanism called priming. And to demonstrate, I'd like to show all of you some images, okay? And I want you to think about what is the liquid in these containers, okay? So, what is the liquid in this container? What's the beverage inside? Okay, the second one. What's the beverage inside this one? Now, as you may have noticed, you were probably very fast in thinking juice or milk or perhaps even fruit juice, depending on your past experiences with containers having these shapes. These images are what neuroscientists call primes. Now, primes are a component of context that lets your brain know what's going on, okay? And whether you're aware of it or not, you can't do anything about it, okay? Priming is automatic. It's what neuroscientists call non-conscious. They make primes make past memories of experiences accessible to your brain to make fast decisions. I mean, very fast decisions. And these memories include the context where experiences occurred, the sensory attributes associated with those experiences, and even the emotions that you felt in those past experiences. As a result, change the prime, and you will likely see a change in the response to what we call targets. For example, if the prime is all natural, then past memories of all natural products, the context associated with those memories, and the feelings associated with those past memories will become accessible and impact your approach or avoid reactions of those contexts. So your reaction to accept, say, or to avoid selecting one of these beverages that are shown here, one of these 4 beverages, will depend on the all-natural prime and your past history, your past, what's being primed in your memories. And the color associations, past emotions made accessible by the prime for what is all natural, okay? So that's priming. It's essential component to understand. So a prime can be a word, as in this case. It could be a symbol. It could be an image. It could be a video, as we showed with these videos on Bush's baked beans, or other elements of context within a moment of experience, okay? Or an imagined moment of experience. Now, primes can also be sensory qualities of products, and we have an example for that a little bit later on that Sarah is going to show. Priming, or the incorporation of primes in your research, can be applied to impact behaviors such as triggering routines driving product use, such as with grill and baked beans, or an ad that you might see on TV on ice cream. You run to the fridge in the middle, late at night. Or priming can be applied to research, consumer research, to observe how and why people react to product experiences. So primes can be incorporated into research designs in a number of ways, okay? And Sarah is going to talk about 3 of these. The first is what we call sequential monadic primes. And these are used to gain insights into specific priming behavior. So how does priming impact? And then indirect primes, or indirect priming, is a really specific, cool technique that is utilized when sequential magnetic priming is not possible. And the third is just providing a magnetic prime at the front end of some research. And Sarah's going to show you some examples of that. So take it away, Sarah.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave. It's exciting to kind of ground us in the neuroscience and then apply it to the research. So I'm going to take you through several different short vignettes, some examples that we're going to go through, and hopefully they'll be salient to you. All right, so let's kick it off with some protocept testing. We're going to transition to case studies, and each of these, think about those primes. We're going to talk about each one. And the first is a sequential monadic prime, or a prime one at a time. In this first example, consumers created their own prime through an activity related to ingredients. So we gave them an activity to put some ingredients together before they evaluated a product. Now, this is just a simple grid to show you that we have 4 different ingredients that they're putting together before they evaluated. They prepared mixes with these ingredients. We actually had them in the lab, preparing these different types of things. And then respondents took these specific mix recipes in the specific order and assessed one at a time of 16 different ones that we had. Then the mixed product, this mix of ingredients, was taken away, and we said we cooked it in the kitchen and brought out for consumption and taste evaluations. Well, we said we cooked it because we brought out a product that was standard, but a protocept, a standard cooked product. So the prime is that they're putting these ingredients together, knowing that they're going to put it together and then you're going to taste the product thereafter. So that prime is their behaviors, their experiences with the product, and everything that's going along with putting these 4 ingredients together. And in a simple way, the results of this study are shown on this graph. And the recipe alone resulted in a 15% change in top 2 box purchase intent after consumption. So we have expectations after mixing, after I just mixed those ingredients together, then I actually tasted it, and the purchase intent when tasting those. Traditional research, would miss that the influence of this mixing piece of it, this lift or this elevation of the expectations or the purchase intent that we got afterwards based upon actually what they put into it. We learned that there are different ingredients that have different effects, and how they put it together was really salient in what we're trying to learn here. So in this case, product development gained some really key early stage insights for how the product, the mix, must be designed by considering first what recipe of added ingredients to the mix provided the greatest degree of emotive connectivity, the greatest elevation of purchase intent. So again, you created this prime for consumers and then understand how it really influenced the product. Again, the product was the same that they tasted all of the time. So interesting. So that's a sequential monadic prime. They created multiple of these protosteps and put this together and then evaluated them. We're going to stay in the ingredient space after this protocept testing. And another application of this is a case study where we're going to look at a direct prime, or the context of use of a specific product or ingredient to bring those ideas to the forefront of your brain and understand the impact of seeing an ingredient or on a product or on a label. So let's dig into this a little bit more. Let's make this larger so you can see it. We utilize an implicit-explicit test, which includes this direct prime. Thinking about ingredients in a snack. So now I'm snacking. Oh, it's afternoon for me. I'm on the East Coast, and that would be perfect. I'm ready for a snack right now to provide a break or escape from my routine. Oh, that might be kind of fun too. How do I think about the following ingredient, or how do I feel about the following ingredient? Olive oil. So as you can see, I have a specific prime, the direct prime of bringing to life the ideas that I have about snacking, bring those to the forefront of my brain, bringing them to the experiences, everything that I've had with experiences with snacking. And then I'm going to assess okay or avoid. That response is captured in addition to time to respond. And we do this for a lot of different ingredients, specifically in this one for food consumption.
Right, and olive oil is your target.
Correct. That's right, Dave. Thanks for that ad. Olive oil is my target
Yep.
here. So I have my prime and then my target, and olive oil is my target. So let's look at a different prime. Again, with olive oil as the same target. So thinking about ingredients in a tablet to provide multivitamins, that's a very different prime. I have to think about that very differently right now. My context, I'm not snacking anymore, but now I can switch my brain and think about, okay, I'm having multivitamins and I'm in a tablet form and I've got this ingredient of olive oil. What do we think about that? That prime is very different. And again, we measure this okay and avoid response and take that together so that we can understand and put that comparison. So as expected, I'm going to show you the data comparing this olive oil, which is in the middle of the chart for the prime. And what we do is take this okay and avoid in time to respond and convert that into what we call a clean label score. So we're looking at a 0 to 100 point scale, taking these 4 different qualities together, with higher on the scale for higher implicit acceptance, more accepting. I am accepting of that much quicker versus avoiding. I'm going to avoid olive oil pretty fast in that specific context. So olive oil is pretty high for both of them. It's good for food. I have an implicit acceptance of olive oil in my snacks as well as in supplements. And then what we have, can everybody see my screen? I just had a flash. So
Yep, it's
hopefully
back.
everything's okay.
Yep,
Okay,
it's back.
sorry about that. I don't got a new computer
That's
and that's
strange.
very strange. Anyway, all right, so let's keep going. So with olive oil, that's what we're looking at now. And then we can also look at things like on the left-hand side of this graph, looking at things like potato starch and sesame oil, things that are much more highly implicitly accepted in foods versus not as implicitly accepted in supplements. And then the next is that on the other side of the graph, we can look at hemp protein and soy protein. Now, soy protein, much more, and gelatin for that case, a higher implicit acceptance in supplements versus implicit avoidance, a little bit more specifically in food, using those two exact different primes. So very interesting that we can, based upon the prime, we can get very different response in ingredients. All right, that was our olive oil example. So we're going to move forward. And what we're going to see now is thinking about emotions testing. And this is an interesting one because we're going to use an indirect prime. And an indirect prime is extremely valuable for emotions work where the feelings associated with the prime and those feelings are fleeting and emotions are fleeting. And so we transfer them to an indirect prime. Here we're going to use images that you can use over and over again to assess the impact of the targets. So those words associated with those feelings. So we're using this middle step so that we can capture those very quick emotions and project it onto a different target. And this process we're going to go through includes plant-based burgers. So you got a guy eating a burger. Imagine it's a plant-based burger. It could be any one of us enjoying a plant-based burger, and that's the prime. We could either be tasting it or we can testing it conceptually. Either way, we're just really getting our context set specifically for some of the research that we did. In this one, we actually had people taste the products. And then participants select an image as an indirect prime that best captures your thoughts and feelings about that experience. This is from a curated list of images that spans visual and design elements and excludes those that are too rational. This is a metaphorical activity. We want to use these images as a metaphor. And the participants explain why the image is a good metaphor and describe the image as much detail as possible. And then finally, we use this again with this implicit-explicit test that I described that we use for ingredients, but we can also use it using this indirect prime, the yes-no time to respond, about how the image made you feel on a set of emotion words. So very interesting how we can put this together and layer in the indirect prime because those emotions are so fleeting. It's something that we need to project upon. The result of this indirect priming process is not only a quantitative assessment of emotional impact, but a set of associated images and consumer stories. In this example for plant-based burger, we can see the top visual cues of geometric and natural and design associations of patterns and outdoors. The indirect prime, how does this image make you feel, allows the assessment of the emotions on this graph. The bars show the Beyond Burger versus their current product, and the striped bars indicate where there's a significant difference between the two. So you've got the orange line, which is the current, the Beyond, which is the dark blue, but those crosshatch lines show that we are significantly different for happy, excited, pleasantly surprised, and proud, full of pride. So those are a lot higher implicit measurement or response, specifically for Beyond Burger versus their current product. Really helps us understand in depth and be able to capture those emotional qualities of the product using the indirect prime. And one more thing is that we can gain some deep context in the associated qualities of the images. So as we talked about, we had some open ends associated with these, and these stories are just, can just be really insightful. For example, open my eyes to the possibility of plant-based burger, new horizons, where it really stands out and unexpected. Helps us to bring to life these consumer emotions, and this all originates with that indirect prime.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We're going to go on to another example. I told you I brought a bunch of vignettes, and excited to share several. We just have a couple more to go through because we've gone through again that the video. We've also gone through what we specifically learned on the protoceps. We did the olive oil, and now we're going to go also into an example of concept testing with tofurkey. So this is really interesting because we're going to use monadic primes, and we're going to look at context a little bit differently and how important it is in some of the packaging research we did to understand the context within the research study, and then also where it fits in the store, understanding kind of this overall context where things are going on in competitive sets in the store areas. So let me talk about that a little bit more in detail. So we had 4 tofurkey concepts. I'm going to show those on the next screen, and these different situations. So the situation on the left is a category of plant-based meat alternative categories. And we've got 7 of those in here, including products such as corn, Lifelike, Lifelite, Simple Truth, just to name a few. So that is one context where we tested the current and the new tofurkey examples. We also expanded this category, so including both the plant-based meat alternative category in addition to the deli sandwich category. That's a very different context. So you've got meat and non-meat together with, where that could be placed in the store, understanding kind of the deli sandwich category. It's a very different context as opposed to just focusing in on the plant-based meat category. So you can see we have 2 really different contexts that are helping us establish our primes that are going on within this research study. All right, so what did we do to assess this? So what we did in this concept test is we wanted to assess which products consumers will choose in retail environment to find the greatest opportunity. We did some max diff work and category lift to assess the control and these 3 additional packages. And our goal was to determine which of the 3 new package concepts would drive sales for the plant-based alternative meat deli slices. So you can see it sits kind of in both worlds. It sits definitely in plant-based deli, but it also sits in this other context of deli sliced meat. And so we wanted to understand that among shoppers of these specific categories. So to do this, we looked at a max diff type of exercise where there was a choice metric. And then we adjusted this choice metric and looked at any bias or looking at the controls lift associated with it. We've previously talked about lift, so if there's something that we want to go in more detail, we can. I just brought this as an example, so if we want some more details on analysis, please just let me know. But what we learned in this exercise is that tofurkey has upwards of 58% increase in product sales, specifically with the plastic tub, in that overall deli sandwich category. So if I go to the bottom, the vertical bag shows a strong lift, 26% in the plant-based meat alternatives category, specifically with those consumers. And the soft tray, though, was the most balanced. It worked across both of them. And lastly, the plastic tub, as I started off with the conversation, kind of lifted quite a bit. It was a surprise to us because it was so specific. But there's a concern that it might alienate some plant-based meat alternative consumers. So it's important to note and to remind ourselves of the totality of the data, providing a holistic recommendation from our learnings, and the importance of the context where the product in the store, like we have to decide where it's going to live in the store and how consumers are going to engage with it. And this all started with the direct priming in this example.
Yeah, so context really mattered here. And without adding context, these different categories, where in the store is going to be located, they would have missed the perhaps if they just did it in the category deli section, where against all the meat products, may have missed the fact of this alienation issue amongst those that are shopping in the context of just the plant-based alternatives. And the plastic tub, because of concerns about environmental things, it's got all this plastic stuff and these, whereas a soft tray was much more simple and made with sustainable materials. People recognize that, and so if you want to look at both of these categories, and have products that are going to fit and sell well, you can actually, this new introduction would lift them against the competition, 36 and 40% respectively. That's really cool.
Awesome. That's great. It's so interesting to kind of see how this kind of all plays out. And we've got one final example, which goes back to the beginning, in which Dave introduced the two Bush's advertising and learnings from qualitative research. We didn't want to leave out a discussion of priming and the immense value that it has in qual. This example goes into utilizing immersive homework to set the context and allow us to better understand consumer motivations. So a favorite research study of ours that we've done was in a social setting at a party. This is something, we've done and recreated. Pre-COVID, we actually rented out a VRBO and moderated in that environment. But that's sometimes not possible right now, right? More often, we're utilizing behavioral tools and to prime consumers with immersive homework assignments, which engage them and ground them in the moment so that they can think back about those social environments that they have. This allows the participant to arrive at the groups or the individual discussion in person or virtually, can work both ways, in the moment and really thinking about the benefits of what we're really looking at specifically in that study. So it brings it to the front, they're much more apt to key into those key memories based upon some specific priming. So we're going to go through our party example and thinking about the approach to priming and thinking about motivations. So when you think about a homework assignment, it requires memory-based activities. All of these primes are thinking, and in qualitative with our homework, we really allow for a lot of time of reflection, that backward thinking, because some of these things, if I think about a social environment today, my memories might be a year ago in the past. I haven't had a lot of social environments, but we're thinking about how we're recreating those and taking it from the best of the best that we remember from the past and how we need to go forward. We use priming, guided imagery, lots of metaphors and storytelling to unlock these minds. And one of the things that we learned in a study that we did was about those rich memories of the journeys and then the best friend. Okay, so what surprised us was that there, in these memories that we were thinking about, in these stories, in entertaining, there's a lot of motivations associated with it, and the situation and context always affords itself to understanding what person's role and what they're doing, and fears and nervousness that are going on. And the best friend provides that supporting role to the host. A key insight was this host support, this best friend, was the most pivotal role in an entertaining event. And when it's missing, oftentimes the event is not deemed a success. Everybody felt uncomfortable. That best friend wasn't allowing, people to pass food, to share drinks, to tell great stories, to share different experiences, and really helps that overall interaction of what's going on overall in a specific event when you're thinking about food or non-food types of activities. And so when we think about that and we want to talk about motivations in this social situation, one person, for example, the host, might be motivated to take a safe choice, to want something that nobody will hate, wants to share and avoid social embarrassment, or wants to share something that comes recommended. Um, and so that person is specifically sharing that. But someone else, for example, the best friend, is motivated by a desire potentially to impress others or help support, again, that host with something that's more interesting, to reflect their overall style and show great taste that we have, and even get some oohs and ahs potentially. What this does is it pulls all these different motivations in the individuals who have different opportunities to share, and then we can apply it specifically to product. We can understand those motivations, and they're all brought up more appropriately or more relevantly, using context and using primes to get us to these really rich qualitative insights. So hopefully you shared that little story about the best friend, but we really were able to gather so much more insights by using priming and a lot more in-depth behavioral homework assignments. And so now, Dave, I'm going to turn it back to you to kind of wrap us all up and bring our examples all back together.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you were able to take away some good knowledge from our webinar today. But just in summary, context really does matter, and I hope we've impressed upon you that fact. It's priming is a component of how we think, and so incorporating that into research is foundational. It's foundational to the other three C's that you see here on the screen, So it does set the context, sets the stage, so to speak, for cues, incorporating cues, as this last example that Sarah was talking about, about the idea of co-participation is when you can observe and really engage with people, you're able to really pick up on in context and cues to understand really what it is that drives us to change our habits, to make decisions, that are new to us, and or to continue doing things, without change. Sometimes, you want to introduce products and it's not necessarily about change, it's about nudging people so you continue doing what you're doing, but thinking behavioral, so you have a behavioral strategy. So that's really what it's all about. I hope you, in particular, have a better understanding when we say behavioral research, what that is about, and how to incorporate context to really improve, to elevate your insights, whether you're working in innovation, product development, or some sort of marketing initiative.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Dave, and I appreciated sharing all of these stories and examples with you. We have just a few minutes for questions. In the question box of the panel, you can type in some questions, and happy to converse with each of you with anything that's going on and issues of questions or concerns that you have with regard to context. All right. I think we have a question coming in, but I'm going to go ahead. There's one here. Let me ask it for Dave. Dave, the question is, how is shopping context specifically associated here? Thinking about going shopping at a local store. I go back to the image that I had of the woman and the picking out a personal care product. What's important about priming specifically in shopping moments?
Yeah, context also does matter. It's, as we showed in the tofurkey example, it's the category, That category is a key component of context. But context goes a lot beyond that. Think about what it is about a product that grabs your attention when it's on the shelf, in a shelf placement, okay? Context really matters, whether you can see or don't see something. I remember, there's been a lot of examples. There's been cases where the package design has been changed, and suddenly in the content, where if you looked at the product by itself in research, how does it really, just an image outside of context, companies have made huge mistakes in launching products, because when that product was on the shelf in the context of the whole set, it got lost. Nobody could find it anymore. The brand was gone. And and we've seen, there's been examples of one company. It was dealing with an orange juice product. I don't want to say who the brand was, but they lost overnight 15% share because they did not incorporate context into their research. So context really does matter, and that's one of the key shopping examples I can bring here from something that I've heard in the past.
Wonderful, great. Thanks so much on that one. Another question that we have here is really related, I guess it's also related to shopping, but how do you compare actual in-store research versus a priming context? How would you say that, I think there's
Okay.
pluses and
Yeah,
minuses for each of those.
do you want me to address that, Sarah?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and I'll add on too.
Okay, well, and this is something you also alluded to. I think is a really important point. And the last year in doing research, we've had to innovate in ways because we couldn't get face to face with people. We couldn't do a lot of things in real context the way that we were doing it before, because of COVID and because of safety concerns for not only researchers, but putting people in as participants into those situations. So one of the innovations that we've been utilizing more and more priming. We've been utilizing more and more setting the context with like homework, or sending people out on missions to do something, and where it's basically to set the context in their mind, so that when they come into let's say an online piece of research which is out of that context, they're really mentally primed to have those memories accessible to provide much better research. And so I think this is here to stay, like this, technology we're using for this webinar is here to stay. It was not utilized as much a year ago, Zoom meetings and things like that, it really impacted how we work and so on. The same with research. And I think that priming behavioral research as a behavioral research technique is here to stay, and we'll utilize it a lot more.
Yeah, I think in every research design and every research objective, we're going to figure out the best way forward, right? Especially as you talked about with COVID, we've had to make some different choices or different changes. But I would say that in every research study that I've done in the past year, priming is important. Whether it's a small little story about getting people into the moment when they're evaluating a product, or just bringing those memories to the forefront. I love that balance of going out and doing a mission or some experience, but then sharing it more deliberately and thoughtfully with the researcher, because I feel like in a lot of the online research, like that, as you can tell, I had a lot of passion for the best friend example, because we're even in some online boards, we're able to really get some really rich insights through some thoughtful reflection. So I think that lends itself also to a way that we can really elevate insights. If I go back to our title, that's what we're really trying to do. Right. I don't see any other questions that we have. We want to thank you all for your participation in this webinar. We love to talk about all these types of topics. Contacts, feel free to reach out to us. Our next webinar that we have, if I can click forward here, is all about finding your focus, thinking about questions you must ask at the beginning of innovation. And Greg Stuckey and Bracken are gonna really focus in that next week and continue to delve into all of the rich opportunities that we have to innovate and provide great products to consumers.
Right, great. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your joining us. And anyways, have a great April. And please do join us next week.
Wonderful. We look forward to it. Again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you all soon.
All right, bye.